Hello, Duke fans. Welcome into the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily podcast for all things Duke Blue Devils news. Just like every day, we thank you so much for tuning into the show today to get your latest on the Duke Blue Devils. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Happy to chat with you guys today, just like every day on the Blue Devils. So Duke is coming off a massive 77-51 victory over number 11 Virginia on Saturday. Duke improved to 27-2 with the victory, 15-1 in league play. Virginia dropped to 25-4 overall, 13-3 in league play. Duke establishes itself as the true team to beat in the ACC, now locks in the number one seed in the ACC tournament and at least a share of the ACC regular season title. After the Blue Devils at 15-1 in league play, Virginia still in second place at 13-3, followed by Miami at 12-4, North Carolina and Clemson both at 11-5, and NC State at 10-6. Louisville has really dropped, now at 9-7 in the league in seventh place. A team that came into the season widely regarded as the number 2 seed in the ACC. Then Duke, based on the conversations had in the preseason. That is obviously not the case. Louisville having a fairly disappointing season relative to what he was hoping for. But just 2 games left on the regular season slate for Duke. While that we're already here, Duke's already played 29 games. Can't believe how fast this regular season has gone and what an utter success has it been for the Blue Devils. But just 2 games remaining on the regular season slate. Both of those games will be quad one opportunities. Duke is currently on a 6-game win streak, winning those games by an average margin of 22 points. Blue Devils will close out their regular season with 2 more games. The first on Monday night at NC State. That game will be a 7 p.m. tip Eastern time. That will be a road date for the Blue Devils, and then they will stay in the state of North Carolina to face number 18 North Carolina on March 7th, next Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time to close out the regular season. That will be at Cameron Indoor Stadium. So Duke looking to get revenge on the Tar Heels, who, as we all know, broke the hearts of Duke fans and the program everywhere with a buzzer beater 3 by Seth Trimble to give the Tar Heels a win in Chapel Hill. So in terms of the 1 seed, the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, Duke is really controls its own destiny for the most part. I don't know what else Michigan, who is really the only other team probably that's in contention right now, unless both Michigan and Duke kind of crumble over the next few games, and maybe a team like Arizona, or maybe potentially UConn could jump up. Michigan has a road game against Iowa and then a home game against Michigan State to close out the regular season. But Duke probably controls its own destiny in terms of earning the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. After that game versus Virginia, Virginia, the second best team in the ACC, the number 11 team in the AP poll, a 26-point victory at home. It was really an uncompetitive game for majority of the second half. And it's just really difficult to see any team taking down the Blue Devils in the ACC tournament, just with how handily they've run through the rest of the conference, obviously with the exception of that one game against North Carolina. But Duke went 19-1 in league play last year, 2 games away from going 1 loss in ACC play for the second season in a row. 18-game conference schedule this season out of the ACC. But, obviously been a fairly successful start to the season and, really whole regular season altogether for Duke as it gets prepared for the NCAA tournament. And Duke is now entering that NCAA tournament likely as the team to beat. It really feels like Duke and Michigan and the rest right now in terms of the tiers of college basketball. Michigan took down Illinois on the road on Friday night. Illinois, the number 10 team in the AP poll. Michigan was up by 21 at one point in that game, won that game 84-70. And then obviously Duke did what it did to Virginia, the second best team in the ACC on Saturday. Definitely feels like Duke and Michigan are in the tier of their own. And even though Duke did obviously just beat Michigan head-to-head in Washington, D.C. last weekend, definitely is no clear-cut best team in college basketball, at least in my opinion. I think in most people's opinions around the sport. There's been teams, every team has looked vulnerable at times, but so many teams look elite. Feels like there's anywhere from 6 to 9 teams that could realistically win a national championship this year. Duke is obviously one of those teams, and right now will enter the NCAA tournament as the number 1 overall seed if this season ended today. But just about 2 weeks away from Selection Sunday, and the Blue Devils likely control their own destiny heading into the tournament. Now, here's where we're going to get into the title of today's podcast. Is there's one key area to the game that Duke will have an advantage on against every other team, and it's one of those things where you can factor it in as much as you want or as little as you want. But at this point, with how consistent it has been over years for this one player, I think it's very relevant to bring up, and I think it's actually a pretty solid arguing point if you wanted to make a case for Duke to win the national championship, and it revolves around Cameron Boozer. And obviously, you can make the argument that the play of Cam Boozer is an extreme advantage for Duke than any other team in the country. That's obviously true. We know what Cameron Boozer has done this season. He's 7th in the country in scoring average at 22.5 points per game, 10 boards, 4 assists, 1.7 steals, 57.7% shooting from the field, 40.2 from three. He's been the most consistently dominant player in the country, and it's not even close. He's gone for a double-double 16 times. He scored 17 or more in every game since ACC play has begun. I apologize. And he shot under 50% from the field just twice in that same span. And against Virginia over the weekend, Tyster Ritter, Ugonna Onyenso, Johan Grunlow, the Virginia Bigs did as good of a job, as probably a better job than any team has done on Cam Boozer all season long. Cam Boozer did not have a single made field goal in the first half. The physicality of Virginia down low really made life difficult for Boozer and clearly frustrated him. Obviously, it didn't matter in the result of the game, but he didn't make a single field goal in the first half and still ended the game with 18 points, 9 boards, and 4 assists. It's unbelievable how consistent he's been. At the KenPom National Player of the Year algorithm, Cameron Boozer currently has a rating of 3.118. That's the highest rating since KenPom began this metric in 2011. In second place in that algorithm is Joshua Jefferson of Iowa State at 1.775. So Boozer is so far and away from the rest. So, I mean, if you want to take 1 and 2, Boozer at 3.118, and then Jefferson at 1.775, Boozer is nearly 1.5 points ahead of the number 2 spot, which is an unbelievably wild margin. For reference into how wild that margin is Joshua Jefferson at 1.775 in the number 2 spot. To number 10 is Aday Mara of Michigan at 1.385. So about a 0.4%, point differential from 2 to 10 compared to 1 to 2. But here's kind of where we are, and we're not talking about his player. Obviously, Cameron Boozer's play is a huge advantage for Duke that no one else has. But what I think is becoming a point of emphasis, and it doesn't really get talked about. Again, you can factor it in as much as little as you want, but it's the fact that Cameron Boozer has only ever won in his life. And that sounds so simple, but it's true. He's one of the most decorated high school prospects of all time. He came into college with his twin brother, Caden, having one of the best high school resumes in the history of high school basketball, potentially the best resume ever. Him and Caden at Columbus High School in Florida, the two are from Miami, won 4 state championships. They won a Chipotle Boys National Championship as seniors. Cameron Boozer is a 2-time Gatorade Boys National Player of the Year, and he's a 2-time Mr. Basketball USA. The only other player in history to win Mr. Basketball USA twice is LeBron James. Just since his basketball career has begun, basically, Cameron Boozer has only won and has only dominated. And he's gotten to Duke, and it's been the exact same thing. Not only is Duke winning, but he is the runaway best player in the country, leading, at least according to the computers, the best team in college basketball right now. As we all know it, Duke is 27-2, 15-1 in ACC play, number 1 team in the AP poll, the number 1 team at KenPom, the number 1 team in the net. Duke is also second in wins above bubble. Michigan is first in wins above bubble at 11.20. Duke's at 11.02. But Cameron Boozer has only won since he started playing competitive basketball, basically. It's unbelievable. Because there's a difference between just winning and being consistently good. But Cameron Boozer is consistently the best player on the best team by a wide margin. Again, he net 4 state championships, a national championship, won the Gatorade Boys National Player of the Year award twice, and Mr. Basketball USA twice. He's had very few issues ever not dominating the rest of the field. And that's showing right now more than ever as he came into college basketball and all season long has been the focal point of every defensive game plan. And literally no team has been able to shut him down. And here he is putting together one of the most productive freshman seasons in recent memory. The runaway National Player of the Year favorite. You can't emphasize it enough just how dominant, how easy he makes it look. And it's not the flashiest game in the world. I think fans and folks around the sport are also starting to take it for granted, these stat lines we get from Cameron Boozer, which I preached on shows before we cannot do. But it's one of those things that I think Duke fans should keep in mind this tournament is just the fact that Cameron Boozer and Caden Boozer as well, they just never lose. And here we are, and he's proving it again as Duke is on the track to enter the NCAA tournament as the number one overall seed, the number one team in the country. And, who's to say that doesn't matter anymore when it's happened so consistently over the years and is happening once again right now? I think it's a point that I think Duke fans should be thinking about, and I think folks around the sport should be thinking about as the postseason begins to roll around, is the fact that Cameron Boozer has not lost really in his entire life in the game of basketball. And here we are now. He hasn't lost much at all as a rookie. He's doing everything right. Really could not have gone much better if you wanted it to. And, I think it's something to factor in as Duke gets into the postseason and looks for a sixth national title. But Cameron Boozer, the most dominant player in the country, not even close to the best player is, and he does not lose. And, if you want to factor it in, you do. If you don't believe in that stuff, it's totally understandable, but it's just getting to a point where I think it's something to factor in and something fans should be keeping an eye on. But Duke gears up again for a Monday night road date against NC State, getting ready to close out the regular season. That is going to do it for us here today at the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast. Just like every day, we thank you so much for tuning into the show today to get your latest on the Duke Blue Devils. Make sure to check us out at si.com/college/Duke to get your latest on the Duke Blue Devils every single day. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI, and I'll see you tomorrow.